All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon where you are coming from on this planet. It gives me pleasure again to welcome everybody to another one of the WISE webinars. I, as you can probably see in my little window, I'm currently advertising myself as Gabrielle because he, thankfully, has actually taken a couple of days off and is bouncing up and down the East Coast somewhere with a family. So wish him well. Hope he's having a good couple of days off. He bounced on me this morning with messaging. So I'm hoping he shuts his bloody computer down and actually goes off and spends time with the family if he's listening. And I would like to bring everybody up to speed on this one. So we're actually going to have a conversation about kids and teachers and parents and guardians and the internet. And so without further ado, as everybody should be able to see, we have a fun and interesting panel with us today. And I will lead off with ladies first. Rachel, please feel free to take a couple of moments, introduce yourself and say hi to everybody.
Hello, I'm Rachel Arnold. I am the Client Relationship Specialist for Secure Nation, which is a very small company located in Baton Rouge, working coast to coast kind of thing. So we have a broad viewpoint of this situation from east to west. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Wonderful. John, you're up next, sir.
Okay, I'm John Gates. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone, depending on where you are. I'm a lead IT security analyst for our global threat management for Kellogg, but where my experience will play particular interest in this little conversation is I had 16 years in information systems management and security for a high school district here in Illinois in my home state. So glad to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Ron, you're up next, sir.
Hi, my name is Ron Craig, and I'm the head of IT and cybersecurity for a tech company in Ontario, Canada, way up here in the north.
Nice. Sandor, sir, without last but obviously not least on this one, go for it.
My name is Sandor. I'm the CISO for a company called CyberPulse. We are a security services company provider based out of Indianapolis, Indiana.
Awesome. Hey, do me a favor, Sandor. Give me a quick bit of background on the stuff you're doing behind the scenes that I'm aware of with the school kids stuff, please.
Okay. So one of the projects that actually two of the people here are involved with is a curriculum that we're developing out for 8th, 9th, and 10th graders as they start their trek, digging deeper into social media and trying to circumvent their parents' rules and such. But it's for all intents and purposes a security awareness curriculum that we'll be providing for free to the entire world. So there's some really great people that are involved in it. If you'd like to know more, I'll ask Ron, Chris, myself, and there's a handful of others as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciated. All right. So I think we will, without further ado, dig into the first question. Again, to set the scene and to lay it, my daughter went back to school yesterday. It was her first day back to school yesterday. She only had a couple of classes. One class was on Google and it absolutely failed because apparently the webinar stuff wouldn't work properly. And the second one was on Zoom, and apparently Zoom's having some problems with the Zoom hacking and Zoom bombing again still going on. So between the two classes, abject failure on absolutely both of them. Not only adding to that, we have today, I got an amazing guy sitting here who's running around the house today doing a whole bunch of stuff with the Xfinity stuff. And so he's doing that while I'm on a call, Jen's on a call, my daughter's at school as well on calls at the moment. So we're juggling tech and everything at the same time. So my question is, most of us have got rugouts, got stuff like that. How the heck do we juggle all of this? How do we do this effectively? I kind of want some thoughts and some ideas from everybody on this. And I'm going to open this up again with Rachel on this one to start with. How do we juggle the combination of presences in the home? How do we all deal with this? Give me some thoughts.
So, currently we have a just turned 3-year-old, an almost 4-year-old. So that's 2 3-year-olds running around, a 5-year-old, the husband, 2 dogs, right? I'm on calls all day long. Joshua was an analyst and was, had to use the office as well. So how do we juggle that? Very carefully and with a lot of support. So most days the grandparent brigade come and help with the littles. On the days that they can't help, which is now, Joshua is currently probably duct taped to a kitchen chair while the children have run away with his phone and are watching whatever YouTube because they all know how to do that. One thing that we really do is right now, my time in this office, my door is locked. There's a sign on the outside that very clearly in child speak says, "Mommy is busy." Go ask daddy. Right? There's actually a picture that my 5-year-old drew that's like, find the daddy. And probably, I mean, it's just time designation, right? Like we have to schedule and coordinate all of the time down to the minute, right? The 3 kids are pretty hard to maintain if you don't have a clear plan. Go over that plan, but then also be able to you know, quickly change it at the drop of a hat in case whatever who hits the fan, and be able to adapt to each moment to moment. It's a hard thing to do, definitely. We lost Chris for a second, probably because Xfinity is
Yeah, for a minute.
How about you, John? Why don't you go from there?
Well, I guess for me, even before the technology comes into play, right? It's more level setting boundaries with your children, and actually sitting and having a conversation, in that conversation leading into where they feel comfortable to come to you with any situation, and you know, sort of a safe harbor for them, right? They can discuss anything with you. Having that foundational understanding in relationship with your children, when it comes to technology, that's just another tool or another piece that comes into play. If you haven't established that conversation beforehand, certainly with COVID, with everybody being locked in the house and being together, there's certainly opportunity that will arise where, you know, you can begin those conversations and build that, and then add the technology piece to that. You're going to have guidelines, you know, what websites are appropriate that for them to look at, you know, and the list goes on and on from there. But specific to technology, like level setting, if they have social media accounts, you're immediately a friend to them on their accounts. There's nothing that you don't have access to that they do, as you teach them to be, you know, good digital and good responsible digital citizens. You know, it's just having those conversations, and actually your children can educate you, right? So you set that boundaries and guidelines, but also leave it open for them to speak, tell you about what new technologies are out there or what's popular with kids, and you can actually learn quite a bit in that regard too.
Awesome, nice. Sorry, I had to dash off again. Talk about, you know, balancing and then juggling everything. We got our Xfinity guys running around the house. Ron, give us some thoughts on this one, please.
One thing I always like to keep in mind, especially when I'm talking to, now I have 1 kid, so I'm sure you all envy me in some degree, especially John. But you know, I always want to make sure that she understands that this is school. You know, even though it might be in home, we want, you know, I set up a space for her that is her space. You know, it's in her room. She has, you know, it's a safe space, a space she trusts, a space she feels comfortable. And so she's in there working. And I always want to I always stress the mindset that you are at school and you have to act like you're at school. And you know, now if you have 3 or 4 children, hopefully they all have their own room. And I know if they don't, you're going to have to accommodate, be dynamic, be flexible. One might have to go in the basement, one might have to go on the roof. I don't know. But, you know, wherever is a space. But I think, you know, a child has to have their own space. Just like at school, you have your own desk. You have your own spot at your table. You have your own comfort zone for you to learn and be comfortable at. So I think that, you know, at home, if you are doing full online learning, that you want to try to maintain that kind of consistency as best you can.
Yeah, makes sense. Sandor, any thoughts to add on to that one?
So for me, at least, I feel being preparing and being proactive. So understanding what's going on and trying to set things up before it becomes an issue, before the devices start coming into the hands of young children, presetting those, oftentimes around 4 or 5 years old is when a kid gets, their first kind of hand-me-down smartphone to watch YouTube videos. Mostly as an extension to, hey kid, shut up, we need to talk. So, or watch a movie or whatever it is else that we're doing. So, by preparing beforehand, you can eliminate a lot of the risks. So you're being proactive. Once you start getting into the reactive thing, it's like a domino. You're reacting to this, and then you've got to react to the next and the next, on down the chain. But by being proactive, you reduce and possibly even eliminate the need to be reactive after the fact or during the fact. So, I like some of the comments that you guys have made is, definitely make sure you're connected to their social media account so you can kind of observe, put yourself there as a mother relative, if it's like Facebook or something like that, and pay attention. That's the biggest thing that I think we need to make sure of is that we're paying attention. You may not know what, an blown engine looks like, but if you open that hood up once a week and top off the fluid, you'll start to realize there's a hole in that pipe right there. That doesn't look normal. Maybe I should get it checked out. And ask those questions to people who do know.
Yeah, I think this is, it's interesting. We touched on this. We did a webinar several weeks ago when we touched on kid safety online, and it was we had some amazing folks on that one too. And I think it was interesting when Gabriel and I were starting to do the pre-planning for this one, we started to have those conversations here, and it's the same thing. It's parents, teachers, and kids all having that level of awareness, and all being aware, and the parents or guardians especially paying attention to what the heck is going on, especially if the kid's glued to the computer for most of the day, which they're going to be with school in the way it is. So talking about kids and teachers being glued to the screens, one of the challenges obviously is communication. And so when we had challenges and we had problems before, we could go in, we could talk to the teachers, we could talk to anybody that's doing the administration behind the scenes. How do we as parents or guardians, as we're watching the kids, how do we actually support those teachers and then the technology that's behind it? I'm really interested in some of you guys and some of the thoughts on this one. And this is a hot button for a whole bunch of different reasons. So, take a little bit of extra time. Ron, I'm going to throw this one at you first.
Well, that's a great question, especially I think if you are in a multi-kid situation that may be spanning schools. Now, I can see this scenario where you might have 6, 7 kids, right, John? And and you're in a situation where you might actually have them through different schools and actually using different technologies and platforms. So you actually may be, as a parent, supporting Zoom, Google Meet, Google Classroom. You could be on GoTo, whatever. I mean, it could be. So I think as a parent, you really need to use this software. You need to understand. You need to be able to go in Zoom, if that is having a chat with a friend and understanding how to do some basic maintenance and troubleshooting of the application to get the student into the classroom as best you can. Because one thing I find with children, even as children as young as mine, that once I showed her once, I found she was actually pretty good at understanding how to mute and unmute the microphone, how to have the video on and off, how to do the basics of what's required in the online learning classroom. And I think that anything that goes beyond that, a technical issue, it reboots, anything that's more technical than that, I think, obviously the parent might have to get involved if available. I know that's going to be complicated for some. And I'm hoping that, especially in our case with our school district, we actually have a tech support line that the parent can call to get, some basic assistance. And I'm hoping that has been set up, universally throughout, but let's face it, I mean, this has been a bit of a rush, and there's going to be cases where they're not going to have those facilities and tech support available. But let's obviously cross our fingers. But that's up to the parent, to really go and look and review the information to see, is that available? What do I have available to me from the school district end to make this successful? Because the idea and the goal here is to make sure that this is a successful and safe and comfortable experience for your children.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm actually going to throw this one at John because, you know, he basically has a small medium business in the household. Let's be perfectly honest here. So I'd be really interested on how he's handling this. This would be a fantastic part of the conversation.
Right. Well, fortunately, I have an amazing wife that helps me out with all of this this stuff at the household, which is key. But this is a perfect segue into this. Parents, no matter what their level of technical knowledge, that they're going to, in this day and age, with the situation as it be, they're going to have to become more tech savvy. They're going to have to get on Google, start looking at the technologies that their students are using, right? Beyond what the school can help with, because honestly, a lot of teachers struggle with these same technologies. I mean, this is new to a lot of the schools in general are kind of just trying to make their own way at this point with the distance learning portion of this. But parents really do. I mean, if you don't have the tech skills, you know somebody that does. I mean, ask around, and you got to look for resources. And definitely Google is a great place to go when you're looking for more information just in general on just about any subject. So I'd encourage parents to actually do that, and also reach out to the school's technology department too. It's another solid way to try to get a little more background, or maybe additional handouts, or just information in general about the technologies that the students are using, because until you have at least a general understanding of that technology, are you going to know how to best guide your child who's looking to you for guidance? You're not going to be able to help them effectively and safely without having some core knowledge. So that's the main statement I would make regarding that.
Yeah, and definitely just to add to that, I know locally our school district had some very helpful links and things on their landing pages. So if you go to your own school district's landing pages and just scroll through for anything tech program, Zoom, like anything instructional, right? Lucky enough for us, we have LPPS Tech, which they have put together over 100 videos walking parents through. I mean, some of these are only, you know, a minute long, but each one is parsed out, like walking parents through how to set up a Zoom meeting, O365 waffles, signing into O365, Google Drive, just one thing after the other. And it was very thoughtful, and it came out of a collaborative group of parents, teachers, tech folks from the parish. Sorry, we're in Louisiana. That's county for everybody else. That, you know, had some thoughtful discussions about what's going to come up as things that parents and teachers and students need the most help with. The only thing that's concerning me is that there's nothing really focused on online safety or security, other than don't capture meetings or classroom settings that we're in, and be respectful of others' privacy. That's it. That's the whole end of story. I was like,
and to add on to that, I think also one of the best things is to communicate with the teachers and, you know, with the school when it's necessary. You know, it's when you see something that's odd, you don't understand, you know, no question is stupid. You've got to ask the question, and we're all on different levels in regards to technology, like Chris expressed, you know, earlier. But, you know, if you see something odd coming out, or you see something that doesn't seem to make sense to you, ask those questions, because chances are other people are seeing that, don't understand it, and are not saying anything. And it could be a security risk at the worst case scenario. The other thing is, you know, it could just be a configuration change that needs to be made. In regards to playing with the tools that are given to your children, you know, as well as the teachers who are issuing these tools out, whether it be Zoom or, you know, GoToMeeting, Microsoft Teams, whatever, Jitsi Meet, go through the settings and take a look at the settings at what you can do. You know, pay attention to the privacy and the security settings, but also look at some of the other ones as well. So, yeah, I don't know. Anyone got anything to add on that?
No, I think that's pretty good. Now I know Chris had to step away, and so I think that maybe we could jump on to the next question that we have here. And I think that, and it's a very good one. I think that Chris brought up that we wanted to address is whether or not our children are actually working and doing the work. What kind of accountability, what kind of visibility do we actually have into the children, especially if you're a single parent, two working parents, and even though obviously one of you may be at home if they're underage, but you may not actually be able to sit there with gloves on and mitts on and actually and watch every second. Obviously, you want to keep an ear and an eye to what's going on, but how do you make sure they're working? Is there teacher accountability? And I think that that's a really good question. And I think that John, with you with more than one kid, what do you think about that? How do you keep the accountability and visibility into that?
Yeah, I think if you don't have, a significant other that's at home or anything to do that, there is small Wise cameras that you can buy on the internet for about $25 or $30, and you could have that and be able to monitor while you're working. If you're on your smartphone, even if you're not working at a computer per se, you could do that. And just the idea is to monitor always, because unfortunately, just handing technology to a student, they could inadvertently see something that, and you can't unsee something once it's seen online. So monitoring and being able to see that and maybe provide guidance if something is seen like that. If you don't know what's going on, you're at a disadvantage. And again, if you don't have that relationship with your child built, they might not be comfortable to come and talk to you about it. So monitoring ways, there are screen monitoring softwares out there too. Some things you have to open your wallet for, of course, but there's Net Nanny, there's other types of utilities that can be used to monitor and record your students' interaction on a screen, whatever it may be. And that's something that should be looked into as well.
My sister, sorry, our mail must be here. My sister-in-law, her father is a substitute teacher for East Baton Rouge Parish Schools, and he's also having to do this virtual environment, which is cumbersome, especially as a substitute teacher, somebody who's not going to be using the same platforms every time, and then you're moving from school to school to school. And really, he says that the responsibility to him feels like it's mostly on the teacher to make sure that students are staying on task and doing those kinds of things. So if you can't necessarily come out of pocket, right, to get some of these extra tools or anything else, that John mentioned, building that relationship with your child's teacher is going to be so important. Very important. Make sure the lines of communication are open. That means back and forth, right? It's not just one way barking at them. You got to make sure whenever they bark back at you that you're listening 100% and being able to collaborate and work with them, just to make sure that, your kids are staying on task, that they are responsibly navigating tools that they're being given in their virtual classroom setting, that kind of thing. And a lot of teachers have those landing pages actually already set up for open lines of communication. My kids are in 2 different classes right now. Neither one are virtual settings because they're too small. So one is a pre-K situation and the other is a kindergarten situation, but those landing pages are already set up, and my husband and I can very easily communicate back and forth with his teacher throughout the day, even if we wanted to. We try not to bother her too much because, bless her soul, my child is precocious. I'm like, whatever you're doing over there, good job. Yay. Good for you. But
there is a
no, go ahead. You're good. You're good.
I was going to add to John's. I know that there's some paid services as well for screen sharing. One of the products that I've utilized in the past is called DW Service. It's an open source tool. It's Linux based. It's free to use. It takes a little bit to set up sometimes, but it's the most secure open source or kind of free software that you can utilize to actually access any device constantly. But even without seeing, one of the things I like about it is that without actually going in and looking at the screen of what's going on the screen, you can actually see what logs are being generated and kill processes without actually ever going into the machine, kind of like utilizing a PS tools, something. So, you know, DW service, I believe it's dwservice.net. .net. Excellent program. It's resource friendly, and it works really well. So.
You know, that's a great idea. Josh uses that from time to time to help our friends that call and they're like, I can't get this set up for whatever, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, let me remote in, you know, kind of thing. I didn't think about that. Good point.
Awesome. What do you guys think about accountability on the teacher end? Because, you know, we talk about, you know, that, you know, the kids are in school, and I think, you know, we still want to kind of maintain that mindset, but, you know, in reality, you know, they're kind of half in, half out. You know, they might be looking at a screen, but they really aren't in school. And how much responsibility falls on the teacher to really keep, you know, the children in line and organized? There's only really so much they can do. Now, I think, you know, when, you know, children, you know, I mean, of course, they have a, you know, an inherent respect for teachers at a young age. That's something that's kind of there. So now, of course, now maybe not in high school, but, you know, as younger kids at least. And, you know, how much do we really account for that the teacher can keep things in line? Do they have to watch and look at, you know, how much control do they have even over the child's, you know, device? I think, you know, in a lot of cases they have none. You know, they can't, you know, they may be able to mute the microphone if need be, if something goes on or something happens that the other kid shouldn't hear. Cameras, I mean, I have seen I've seen some guides where I've been looking when I did some research on this, that some people have, you know, that the cameras have to be on, no virtual backgrounds. The child is exposed. That's why we talk about having the safe space. And, you know, can the teacher turn off and on the video camera? Probably not. They might be able to mute them, but I haven't seen too many programs that allow you to turn off the actual guest webcam if needed. And of course, we would have concerns if they could, because you could turn it on at a time when you shouldn't as well. That's a privacy issue. And as we know, children by law have a right to privacy. So I'm just thinking from a teacher perspective, if I'm a teacher and I have 20 kids on a screen, you know, how much falls on me for responsibility and accountability? So I don't know if Sandor, maybe if you could add to that.
Well, you know, the teachers are the first line of defense within their classroom. They are the pilot of that ship, the captain of that plane. Anyway, so, you know, whether they understand or not what's going on, they need to be observant and they need to pay attention and be trained in such. If they're not trained to do at least some of the basic technical, handle some of the basic technical issues, then, there's a failure there from the school district as well. And, from the school to the school district to the Board of Education in that state, on up the chain. But there's also a responsibility to play from the parents, especially if you're a parent that's there observing at least one class a week. I would recommend, sit down and watch your student, your child engage as a student in that class. And the same thing with the teachers. They need to understand that there's more going on than just education in this setting. Kids are going to learn things, especially once they get to that 11, 12-year-old stage. They're going to figure out ways to get around things and circumvent some of the rules, the policies, as well as, test the waters in trying to, what can I do to hack into something? How can I break into this or that? And we're giving the student, the child, this tremendous access right now with these tools that are pretty much, until recently, have gone completely unchecked. Communication is the key. The teacher has to be part of that, and so does the parent.
Okay. Question, maybe a follow-up too. Maybe John, you can field this one. I was thinking, is that at school, if a child is misbehaving or things are having trouble, a teacher can send them to the principal's office. They can send them for a timeout. They can have them have quiet time. Now, when they're at home and they're in the safety and and privacy of their own home, how much really control does a teacher have? How much control legally do they even have? How much responsibility? Like if little is causing a lot of problems, a lot of that they have to, let's say, be booted from the Zoom because of maybe their behavior. How does that, can the teacher do that? Should they do that? Where does that lie? And if they did boot them from the Zoom and the child got up mad and got hurt, who's accountable? I think there's a lot of questions here that we don't really know, but I'm just thinking, John,
if I can start with that, I think communication there is the key. The teachers and the parents have to be in communication. When it comes to disciplinary and technology, you've got to be able to communicate. When we see something, we have to say something. As a teacher, hey, we see something. I know we had a post, and I went pretty aggressive on the the privacy of the child earlier in I think it was this past weekend. But when it comes down to it, that was handled incorrectly, but you know what? The communication between the teacher and the parent has to be paramount. I mean, you got 30 students. I know it's an uphill job for the teachers, and at least here in the U.S., teachers are vastly underpaid, and now they've got to learn technology on top of it, and they're dealing with summer, either going into or out, their own COVID-19 issues. It's a tough role for a lot of these teachers. But with the right tools and the right information, doing virtual classrooms can actually wind up being easier than actually holding physical classrooms, because you're not getting pegged in the back of the head with a spit wad anymore, right?
All right, I'm back. Can everybody hear me again now?
Yeah, Chris,
yep. We survived.
No, you guys are fine. It's just this ends a shit show, to be perfectly honest. And between this one and the other webinar, which is very nice, but there's a lot of fuddy-duddy stuff going on and a lot of so I'm like, okay, I love you, but I don't. And then the fact that I just decided to reboot the internet. I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I need something stronger than a cup of tea at the moment.
But yeah, to build off of what Samuel was saying, it does take a village to raise the child. That's the saying, right? And that communication piece has to be there. And I think parents will maybe have a new appreciation for teaching as a whole, because they are going to really have to be present as much as possible. And if not them, a caregiver. There has to be that in-home enforcement of rules and level setting with a child when that kind of stuff happens, because you're right, the teacher can't reach through the screen and they can't contact the student, and it's really going to be up to the parents going to have to do their part with it and really be in communication, like you were saying, is key to that entire process. Yes.
So it's funny, John, I mean, you hit the same thing again. It's the communication. I mean, it's all about communication. The whole blasted thing comes back to this one. I'm actually looking at a whole bunch of things on here, the questions that are coming in. I'll hit some of these, I'll answer some of these at the minute. In fact, actually, there is a big one that's coming here, really, really interesting one. Where the heck did it go? There we go. Okay, so here's a good one. This is one which I've not come across. All right, so question came in from Dave. Recommendations for special needs kids. One of his Rugrats has got Asperger's and almost 12, and some interesting stuff on that one. How to actually focus them, how to bring in. I'm actually going to hit this one. This is actually a really, really cool one, because we talk about how to enable kids to be more effective, how to give them things to do, how to actually keep them busy. I'm doing the same thing with my Rugrat who's 16. I'm like, hey, you've got schoolwork. Let's do some other things. What research can you do? What else can you do? How can I enable you to be more effective with the systems that you have around you? I'd love some thoughts on that one. How to keep the kids, let's say busy is the wrong way to put it. How to keep them a little bit more focused and a little bit less off track. I'm actually going to hit John on this one, then we'll wonder. Oh, all right. Sorry, no, Rachel, go on. Rachel.
Go ahead, Rachel.
John.
I have lots of thoughts. So 2 3-year-olds and a 5-year-old. This was hard for the first 2 or 3 weeks, and ended in several arguments amongst the parental units, right? Me and Josh definitely had some drag out fights about it, and now we've got it figured out. Okay, we rotate. It's anybody can do this. You have to structure a schedule and then force yourselves to stick to it 100%, but still be able to shift directions depending on, you know, I have 2 3-year-olds. Do you know how volatile their mood swings can possibly get? Like wrong color sippy cup lid, meltdown, middle of the kitchen floor.
Oh, yeah.
Neighbors
I have a
come.
4 and a 5-year-old still argue over what colors they have on
You
their
wanna know
plates or cups to hold anything.
Hey. Take it down, Lowell.
Sorry, this is how smart they are. Did you see her walk in a second ago? My door's locked. She picked it. Okay.
All right, so
Involved in something all the time. Just the structure of this, then this, then this, then this, then we do this, right? And for the 5-year-old, we let him help us build that schedule so that he feels like he has a stake in it. But
nice. John, what you got, sir? Give me some thoughts on this one.
Yeah, a lot of it is spending the time and being involved with your child, right? And knowing what cues put them off track, right? And then you learn also how to redirect them. So it's all about redirection when they're getting off task or they're unable to focus, and when they actually need a break and you pull them out of the situation altogether and come back afterward. It's more, you know, the more time that you spend, you know, time that you don't normally have, you're working and they were away in the past, you've got to basically learn some of those cues and really how to respond to make it the best environment for your students so that they don't dread getting on and dread school in its current delivery. You know, it's a big change for kids too. Kids are resilient. Yeah, like I said, I kind of sat back and thought about it. So my 5-year-old's expected to email, be able to go through multiple apps on their Chromebooks and everything. It's just it's amazing, and it can be very much a pressure point for a lot of students that they just have trouble being able to focus even in a classroom setting. Now you're pulling them out of that and forcing them or having them look at a screen. It's hard sometimes, and you've really got to pay attention for cues from your child and just, you know, learn to help them cope with that. And then, like I said, redirect where it's necessary.
Yeah, I was actually just responding to one of the conversations. Yeah, the Hack the Box ETF team. Actually, Sandal just put a perfect thing out. Actually, Sandal, why don't you talk about that? Because I actually put something out on the post about it. Go for it.
Okay. So I would recommend to take your child's curiosity and drive them. Let the child explore what they want to explore, but do it in a non-destructive fashion. So, you know, having them join things like Hack the Box, join the U.S. Air Force has a Cyber Patriots program dealing with capture the flag. They get into competitions and things of that nature. Have them explore and really learn all that and try to guide it more into an information security. Like, okay, so you got into this machine. What would you do to protect that person from you being able to get into that machine the way you just did? And have them, you know, explain that and try to fix those problems, not just break them. Because we can all break a stick, but, you know, not that many people can put that stick back together and actually allow it to continue to grow. So it's, you know, it's kind of going along that mindset. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. Ron, any thoughts to add to this one?
Yeah, I think, you know, I'd kind of bring it back to that we still have to remember that this is online learning. You know, they're still in a classroom and they're still expected to learn, pay attention, and behave. Now, I know that there are some differences here, but I think, you know, as a teacher that's in a, you know, and trying to keep people focused, I think it really comes down back to the basics. You know, in a classroom, if this happens and the child loses attention, I mean, you have certain tools in your toolbox that you use, you know, whether that's, you know, being funny, whether it's making a joke, you know, taking breaks, you know, there's a lot of things that you can still keep the same, even though that you're looking at an iPad screen, where I'm teaching a group of kids. And, you know, I remember a teacher said to me years ago when I was talking that they said they have a, you know, a difficult job. Back then, even before the internet, it was, you know, we have to be entertaining. You know, we're not just teachers, we're entertainers. You know, we have to keep the child's focus, their attention, keep them, you know, excited about what they're doing. They have to compete with TVs and everything else that actually happens at home. So I think that, that teachers in general have a lot of skills in their toolbox and a lot of tools available to kind of keep things on track. And, so I think that always keep in the mindset themselves that you're still in a classroom, you're still the teacher, you're still the one that's kind of in charge and leading this along the way, and to do your best. Now, I know that works well for school-age children that, when you reach a certain age, when you're 3 and 4 and high school, but I mean, again, they have these skills and they have these tools already available to them, and to remember to use them. And don't look at the iPad or look at the screen, look at the children. You're in a classroom, children.
Here's the other thing on this one, and actually Ryan's joined us on this one, and he puts a good point out there. I know with my Rugra, I actually encourage her to also get the heck out of the house. Now I'm fortunate that she's driving, so she can actually go out of the house and go get some spare time. But I also try and introduce her to step away from the computer and do a bit of a reset, whether it's, go make herself a cup of something or go do some exercise or something. And Ryan actually said this one as well. What's everybody's thoughts on, especially the ones that have the younger Rugrats, taking them away from the environment sometimes and then making them go play outside, run around, or do something? Again, that energy use on that one. Thoughts on that one? Rachel, give me some thoughts on that one.
We have in our daily schedule 2 recess type situations where we go run outside, and Josh and I rotate, right? Like he'll take the morning and then I'll take the afternoon. And it'll be about 45 minutes that they go and run around outside for a while. Now we live in South Louisiana. Okay, so all summer long, this was not always possible. So another option, and something that we still use for rainy days, is we do dance party in the living room. Okay, I've lost like 17 pounds. Okay, I don't know why everybody else is gaining weight during quarantine.
That's awesome.
Toddlers doing dance parties in the living room like a psycho. Like it's, and we get into it, man. We get down. The 3-year-old, the tiniest 3-year-old, he knows how to do the worm. Y'all, I have got to get this on video and share it. It's pretty spectacular.
Awesome. Right.
But right, and right before we do, that kind of physical activity thing, right after it'll be, let's sit down and color, or something that they like, that's engaging, and even having them participate more in things that Josh and I do to keep our house together, right? Like let's pick up toys together and color coordinate stuff, and let's put our clothes away together, and this is where, just kind of walking them through stuff. We noticed a big difference in their behaviors and in their emotions and their state of being, really, because not only even though it was a different environment than what they were used to, where, mommy and daddy pick you up, take you over to childcare, and then you're there all day doing whatever you're doing, and then we come pick you up and dinner and all of this, right? It was a big change for them to stay home more than 2 days a week, right, on Saturday and Sunday, and so we sparse it out.
John, you got a bunch running around the place. What are you up to?
Yeah, so we've got a giant playset outside, the kind that, the neighborhood comes to use. So we definitely have them go out numerous times a day just to get out in the sun, get some fresh air, just get out of the house constantly. Also, thinking about building a climbing wall downstairs, actually a little activity down in the basement. But then we have games and other things where we play and take breaks during the day too, board games, things like that, just to change the setting for them.
Yeah, it's that mental reset from left brain, right brain, physical activity, just basically move things around on that one. Speaking, remember we talked about like internet problems and challenges? I'm actually texting with my daughter at the moment. She's having problems getting back onto the internet to talk to the teacher about the classrooms. I'm like, Day 2 of school, yay! Sand or Ron, any other thoughts on this one apart from what John and Rachel have said about this?
Yeah, so I'm having your breaks during the day, dealing with physical activities, doing activities away from the screen. You watch movies, you got your YouTubes on your smartphones and tablets, you got your video games going on. One of the things I like to do at least once a week is, take my kids, we got into a new hobby, rocketeering. So we go out to a park, we build these rockets. They're fairly inexpensive, $25, $30 usually. Pack them full of the wadding, and we actually get a chance to actually launch them and see how high we can get them. And it's fun to go out there and then have those kids just chasing those rockets around. For me, it's a neat thing that we can learn together, because I didn't know about it before, and I thought it was great for science, understanding, lift, weight, thrust, drag, and something you're not really going to get in most of the middle and even high school sometimes.
That brings back a crazy memory from my daughter from many, many years ago. I have my explosives license. I can do pretty much anything with stuff that goes bang. And so I remember years and years ago, we were building all sorts of interesting things. And so we had a session with my daughter, and we sat down outside, and we're literally making fireworks. I'm helping her. We've got colors, we've got weights, we've got measurements. We've got all these different things that we're putting together in just different ways. She was 5, 6 years old, something like that. And so it was kind of all interesting stuff when we were building this together, and then at the end of it, you get to set fire to it, and this whole thing just does all the crazy stuff that it does. Absolutely fantastic. She loved it. Totally got her into I want to make more colors. I want to do this, and you suddenly realize all of the dynamics, and now she's causing chaos in chemistry and stuff like that. So yeah, it's interesting. I love the idea of being able to do that stuff.
All my dad did was throw a ball.
Yeah, we set fire to things and blew shit up. It was kind of fun. Yeah.
I prefer to blow stuff up versus just throwing a ball.
No, but that was, and it's time together, right? It's just hanging out and being together, and that face-to-face interaction to break up the monotony of the virtual and digital world that we all are living in, right? All the way down to the little kids. So
it's a break.
And it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse from here. I mean, I think pretty much everyone realizes that, screen time is just going to increase exponentially from here on out. We're not going to get away with, we have doctors doing surgery through a screen with remote robotic arms. We've got, x-ray machines. We've got classrooms that are going on via screen. It's getting harder and harder to get away from, this 16:9 screen that we need to use for communication, to work, to find work, to, banking, for everything, shopping, the list goes on.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys touched this a little bit while I was out and about. Have you talked or have you touched on that? How do we actually help the kids understand safety online, recognizing bullying situations, and those kinds of things? So less about the technology, less about the teachers, and more about actually protecting the child themselves. Did you touch on that while I was out trying to deal with the other shenanigans? All right, so let's touch on this stuff. It's a fairly sensitive subject and a fairly important one. What recommendations does each of you have for how you deal with looking after either your kids or kids around you, or even helping the schools deal with like the safety online, the bullying stuff? Ron, I'm going to shoot this one at you first. Give me some thoughts, please.
It really comes back to, like we've been talking about, is the communication and actually having the safe zone and making sure that the children actually feel that they can come to you as a teacher, as a parent, as a principal, that they can actually come and express their concerns and bring that to you in a safe environment. Now, I think, in a school environment, I think, that this is taught as parents. We obviously try to, we do this as well. We always tell that, you can always come to us. You're never going to get in trouble. We're going to do our very best to make you feel safe and be safe. And of course, I think there's also a certain kind of contract, I think, especially as children get older, because I know even from my child who isn't that old, she worries about, well, what if you say something and the other kids find out? What if, so there always, I think, there are these hesitations that have to happen. So I think it's always coming to in a very unsafe, a very safe, a very non-judgmental kind of way that they know that they can come to you. And of course, there's a lot of resources online. I know Gabriel is working on a guide that's going to be released shortly after this webinar as well. And he also has other guides when it comes to kid safety and privacy that I definitely encourage, parents, anybody listening to this, everybody in general, to take a look. but really comes down to, a safe environment, feeling that the child can express and bring these to you. As it comes to the digital environment, so I think, if it's on the screen and it's in the classroom, the teacher's going to be there. They're going to be able to address that. And I wouldn't expect there would be too much of that going on. But let's face it, this is going to happen offline. These kids might talk on Messenger, kids Messenger after, and they have to have a safe environment. So, that has to be able to come to the parents and have the skills to deal with that. And which I think, as parents, we develop that. We learn how to do that. What do you think, Sandra?
No, absolutely. There's plenty of apps up there that allow us to help with that and assist with that. Again, I'll bring up DW Service as another one that I've utilized on multiple different types of machines. But there's other programs out there too. I think TeamViewer has a pretty good handle on it. UltraViewer, if you're a Windows user. There's a lot of programs out there that will help and allow you to moderate, manage, and observe without the child feeling like you're a helicopter parent. Because once you get to past about, that 8, 9, 10-year-old range, kids want to break away. They don't want, their parents in their life. They want to, take hold of some of their own privacy, having their own room, their own space, away from their siblings, away from their parents. And the key is, going back into the communication aspect, and allowing that, but, help moderate or facilitate that, without being that helicopter parent. And, do yourself a favor, and every now and then just, take a peek, look to see what's going on, don't invade them, but, ask them the questions and see how they respond. Hey, can I look at your room? Just help do laundry or, help you clean up, get a vacuum, whatever needs to happen. So you can be involved in that child's life and kind of observe without being that helicopter, you're going to get in trouble if I see this or that. And that's the other key thing is that when kids do make mistakes or do kind of get into some of that, that gray area, don't come down like, as a hammer on them every single time. Allow them to make those mistakes and explain to them and show them, what the effects are going to be from that and where it's going to go. And try to control that and use that as a teaching moment versus, shut up, you're grounded. I don't want to hear from you for a month, kind of a thing. How about you, John?
Yeah, I think finding teachable moments is the key piece of it with everything. But one aspect with bullying that I guess I wanted to touch on is you could have a case where your child's actually the child that's perpetuating or doing the bullying, right? And how to look for that and understand that they're going through stuff and probably in some pain in some fashion too, where they will lash out at others and trying to make themselves feel better. So looking on your students' devices for hidden social media accounts or maybe private email that you don't know about or aren't aware that they have can indicate some of that, and to provide them help. And just literally, if you suspect that your student's doing that, just ask them directly. And, again, level set so that it's an environment where you're not judging and coming down on them super harshly, but guide them to the right things to do. And, make mention that things that you do online or that you put out there in chat are literally out there forever. And it basically allows people to paint a picture of who they think you are based on what you're posting, and just teach them the right way in what not to say. What you wouldn't say to somebody directly if they were standing in front of you is probably a time you want to not post that. Or even, hey, if you're thinking about posting something, just run it by me before you do so. Just help guide them. They're looking to us for guidance, and it's a very important piece to this.
I think I stepped in the middle of the conversation, tech support in the home with the homeschool kid as well, stepped in the middle of the conversation. And I think the big thing, and Ryan actually hit this on a point as well, which is the kids have to know that they can come to us. The kids also have to recognize when to come to us and say, hey, something doesn't seem right, something doesn't seem appropriate, something's happening. It's that safe space. It's knowing, to Sanders' point, they're not going to be kicked into a detention type situation for the next goodness knows how many item. They're not going to get yelled at. The tech isn't going to take away, and all those other things instinctively that sometimes we want to do. It's that take the deep breath, take the 10 seconds, remember the communication discussion, and then how do we actually deal with it? We grew up, I remember growing up in a realm that was vastly different from this one. And so,
I think the hardest part too, though, just to add to that, Chris, is that, once you get into that teenager area, they start downloading and playing with apps that they don't want their parents to know. And now when they see some issue within that app, it's kind of well, I see some issues. Do I want to tell mom and or dad or whoever? Because now I'm going to get in trouble because I have this app and they're going to know I have this app, kind of a thing. So it's, that's the areas where you want to really, build that communication and trust to where the kids don't feel like they have to hide things from you, it's just part of life and growing. But it's, to me, I think that's the most important.
Yeah, so just a heads up, we are hitting the top of the hour. It feels like it is nowhere near that amount of time. I figure we're going to have to do this one again, definitely, probably like for the next, winter break, and then one for spring break to remind everybody. So, all right, top of the hour. If you don't mind, I'm gonna shut up and let everybody talk for a minute or so, and then we'll round everybody out. So, any final thoughts from everybody? We'll take them one at a time. And again, ladies first. Rachel, please, you're up on box.
I think really an important thing to remember is to put yourselves in the mindset of the kids that you are most concerned about. Stop for a second. Think about what 12-year-old, 9-year-old, 5-year-old you would have done with the ability to wield this sort of technology and the ease of communication. How easy it is to reach out and communicate with somebody, right? It's so much easier than actually walking across the room and tapping them on the shoulder and, whispering back and forth. You have to remember that. And whenever you go back and you're trying to police, especially your teenagers about what apps they're using and everything, would 15-year-old you react positively to that at all? Or would you get really a lot smarter about how to hide your activity? Right? It's not, you don't learn that, you're not learning the lesson that your parents or teachers are trying to teach you. You're learning a better workaround. So just remember that, right? Understand that they're gonna have apps that they hide from you. But what can you do? You can, right? Like everyone has mentioned in one way or the other, keep those lines of communication open and in a trusting space in a way that there are gonna be no judgments, because you have to lead them through how to conduct themselves digitally, because they're not sure yet.
Makes a lot of sense. Sandor, you're up. So what do you got for us?
No, I agree with what Rachel said. It's the trust and the accountability. Build that communication, that layer of communication through, and that's what you really need to rely on. There's going to be new technology, new apps. I saw listing of the apps that most commonly used, but by tomorrow there'll be 150 new apps that kids will be using and circumvent things. Know that there are apps that are out there that are designed specifically to hide stuff from your parents and from anybody else, your coworkers or whatever. So getting a handle on where to find those, not just in the Google Play Store, but in stuff in, there's stores like F-Droid for Android that you can look to see where open source non-Google Play Store apps are at. And getting familiar, just looking at some of these and looking through the description. Not that you actually have to get into it, but at least that you know what they are. And if you spot them on your child's phone, your son or your daughter, or your student's phones, you can speak up a little bit and say, hey, why do you got that app on there? I know what it does, and that alone, oftentimes just asking those questions, without condemning them, allows them to kind of go, oh, okay, and either they'll share, or they'll further hide themselves and brick their phone and start cloning yours or something.
Yeah, it's a game of cat and mouse, and the sooner you can catch it, the better chance you have of getting better collaboration and communication. Makes a lot of sense. Ron, what you got for us, sir?
I think that one thing to always remember, it definitely is a new age. We have, children can't drink until they're 21 in a lot of countries. They can't drive till they're 16. But when they're 6, 7, and 8, we give them this, and they get to play with these. And and I think there's an argument to be made that these can be more dangerous than the other two. There's a lot of online threats, a lot of things for you to worry about. So I think as a parent, I mean, we all know as a parent, we'll go through hell and high water for our children. So when it comes to learning and online safety, privacy, things like that, is to really never be too busy to go the extra mile to look and learn and to educate yourself and have the awareness as a parent to be the guide. The thing is, children always look to us as, as role models, as the guide to help them through this. And I know a lot of parents are learning this themselves. This is new to them as well. But the thing is that somebody has to be the guinea pig. And as a parent, I'd rather be the guinea pig, figure this stuff out, and make sure that I can actually, help my child, use this technology safer. And there's a lot of resources out there, which, we'll be able to share after, the webinar through the Wiser site. And, yep. And the school has a lot of resources on their page as well to say, how do I keep my child safe online from online threats, online predators, and, take the time, make the effort, get in there, be the guinea pig, be the guide, and guide them.
Cool. John, any final thoughts? Some good stuff from everybody so far.
Yeah, just be present and monitor, and definitely set limits for the use of the technology with kids early on, but also make them feel comfortable to come to you with problems, right? And set that and let them know that, no matter what they're coming to you with, you'll listen with an objective ear and they won't get in trouble. You have that safe harbor time with your kids, I think, is really important.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Well, some fantastic thoughts. Great conversation. I know we've pushed it past the hour, top of the hour, and I think a couple of us are going to bug out and go do crazy other things. Thank you very much to everybody who's listening. Huge appreciations. Rachel, John, Ron, Sandor, much appreciated for being on here. Gabrielle, thanks for hosting this as always, and the Wiser team for doing this. We will have more stuff online to everybody's point, and we'll see everybody again in a few weeks. Take care. Thanks. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Goodbye, everybody.
Cheers, guys. Bye. Cheers.
Thank you, Chris.